2015 had a lot of interesting things happening with the stealth genre, both within the indie and mainstream circles. Outside of the enormous pile of games that get released on Steam every month, a few new entries into the genre emerged from the shadows, such as Volume, Mike Bithel's sneaking game similar to Metal Gear Solid's VR missions, Play Entertainment's turn-based tactical stealth game Invisible Ink, and Five Size Games' The Swindle, which takes a platforming approach. Not to mention the last lifeboat carrying what's left of Metal Gear Solid 5 from the sinking Titanic that Konami seems to be. While these games look interesting and fun, particularly Invisible Ink, which I've beaten and can confirm is really good, they're all pretty much built on familiar ideas that we've seen executed well in other games, or at least that's what it feels like at first glance. Enter Party Hard, one of the more unique concepts centered around stealth, mixing elements of strategy, tactics, and comedy along with incorporating live streaming in a really interesting way. Innovation and new ideas are fun buzzwords to put in a game's description, but sometimes that can really be the issue. It's hard to pave new ground and pave it well the very first time. And new announcements seem to be happening a lot since the game's release. Last month saw the announcement of Party Hard Tycoon, a spin-off management game based off of the ideas of the first game. A mobile version of the original game coming this year, and the game having re-releases through the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 earlier this April. Last week marked the 1-year anniversary since the game was first launched on Steam. So, to celebrate the game's anniversary, let's see if this really is a fresh take on stealth gameplay, or if this party really died. Party Hard is published by tinyBuild Games, an up-and-coming indie publisher and developer studio known for releasing No Time to Explain and speedrunners. They're publishers within the same indie realm as Curve Digital, Adult Swim Games, and Devolver Digital. The game itself was developed by Ukrainian team Pinnacle Games. My apologies if I butchered that name. They have experience in both mobile and flash games most gamers haven't heard of because they're aimed at a more casual audience. In between those games, they participated in a 72-hour game jam, Indies vs. PewDiePie. It was on GameJolt's website and hosted by the popular YouTube personality. The theme of the original game jam was simple: fun to play, fun to watch, with an emphasis on humor. The prototype did fairly well in the competition, ranking 91st out of over 700 games. If you're interested in playing that, or too near broke to buy a new game right now, the prototype is still available to play right on tinyBuild's site. The level in the first version is later refined for the major release in the paid version. The gameplay is a really fun concept. You're a sleep-deprived stranger at a party that's still going on at 3 AM in the morning, and you go and tell them to keep it down by brutally murdering every single one of them. The game is a mix of strategy and stealth, where the world is all one big screen, and you'll have to carefully plan out the best method for your mass homicide. You do this by finding the right time to set off larger traps to take out small groups of people, and moments to pick off other guests one by one. It's essentially a hidden in plain sight game on capturing the moment of your swift executions, followed by casually walking past the person who's about to discover your handiwork. It's incredibly satisfying to slowly creep on a passerby off in a corner, hoping that the other partygoers won't blow my cover as I'm giving my best Freddy Krueger impersonation, and then just stroll right on by before a drunken fool tattles on me and my work. You're equipped with a knife for a quick kill, and each party has an abundance of traps to set, such as objects with timed explosions, food and drinks to poison, cars to start running over people, and a few things to throw people in, such as a grill or over the side of a building. Every time you kill a person, you either have to dispose of the body through hiding it in various places, or you have to get out of the other partygoer's line of sight pretty quickly. So when somebody does eventually find the body, you're in the clear while the police or doctors will arrive and either take it away or just leave the body there to take care of later on? The Popo have a high disregard for the safety of the members of the party as they just leave bodies and blood all over the scene and then just leave and let the party continue as the bodies pile up more and more. But occasionally the Popo do lock onto you when you're too close to one of your latest kills, and it gets tipped off by partygoers who rush to the phone over to rat you out. Once this happens, a boy in blue will come chase you down, and if he catches you, he sends you downtown and you have to start your spree all over again. In order to stop this from happening, you can of course kill the witness before they reach the phone, and if you're able to stay ahead of the cop for a certain amount of time, the cop will just flat out give up. Just walk away, go back to his car like nothing ever happened. A few Steam reviews have popped up for the game, and some critics and fans are comparing the gameplay to Hotline Miami, and I can at least see some superficial similarities. Both games have the player in a house or a small indoor area in order to put the Black Plague to shame with your death counter, but Miami was more about relying on your fast reflexes. Party Hard is more about a casual stroll through your roaring rampage of revenge, giving you time to think through with your Hanzo sword to give precise strikes. In terms of gameplay, Party Hard stands on its own. When I played through the finished game for the first time near the game's launch, I ran into a few issues with the game's level design. The difficulty curve wasn't well balanced in the adventure, as the middle has a pretty steep learning curve at the boat and Miami parties, and afterwards it feels like the game got much easier and much more fair. It took me 10 times to get through the boat party and about 15 to get through the Miami party, then the later ones I got through on my first or second try. However, I played through the entire game over again, partially because Bandicam decided to fail on me, and the team has added a few new updates very quickly after its launch, and it's completely free. It brings random elements into the game along with balancing out both the boat and Miami parties a lot more. Katie, the protagonist you play in the Miami party, has the ability to first knock out enemies without alerting the other partygoers. This allows you to drag them out of sight so you can have some privacy to make them your human knife sharpener. To my understanding, this ability wasn't available at launch, but now that it's here, the level is still pretty challenging, but a lot less frustrating. Without these additions and more fleshed out balancing, the game felt very repetitive and unfair, but the updates ironed out a lot of its difficulty curve and added some nice value, including both a UFO and chainsaw-wielding maniacs. Granted, you do start running out of traps when you have 10 or 15 people left on the map to take care of, but to me, this is the most challenging part and, in a way, kind of a victory lap. It felt rewarding to see the map completely cleared out and just full of bodies and carnage everywhere. In between levels, we get cutscenes of a detective telling us the whole story of trying to catch the killer.
Yes, well, that's an interesting sentiment.
And they're easily the weakest parts of the game. It's going a lot into the killer's motivations and trying to figure out what would drive a person and the player to go into such a mad turn of events. And now I understand where those Hotline Miami comparisons are coming from. Miami's surreal, dark tone in its gameplay reflected the story well. It was aiming to be a rejection of narrative in games in an interesting way, and it's been debated as to how effective it is in Miami, but the story's tone fit with the rest of the game. The difference is that with Party Hard, the gameplay itself is a tongue-in-cheek, fun parody of a game where you're knifing down Hulk Hogan and Mario and shocking people on a huge dance floor at once. The game is fun and ridiculous, but the cutscenes feature a B-movie detective story that doesn't fit with the rest of the game's comedic tone. It almost feels like they're trying to go for a so bad it's good quality, with the dialogue not exactly being Quentin Tarantino and the acting not quite being Daniel Day-Lewis.
Our psychopaths succumb to the outdoors, of all things.
Really now, Mr. West, can we stop with the cliched storytelling? This isn't a tale from Narnia.
It's not really clever enough to merit the so bad it's good quality. It doesn't really display that kind of irony, and I'm not sure if it wants to be taken seriously or not, and that's a big problem. It's mostly dark for the sake of being dark, and curses unnecessarily, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The story is a bit of a disappointment, but thankfully you can skip them in between levels. One of the most interesting features of Party Hard can be found in the options menu with the Twitch integration. Fitting with the original prototype's theme, fun to play and fun to watch, the game can include a Twitch mode where while you're streaming and playing the game, 3 options appear on the top for fans to vote on as you're playing. Here, you can introduce a random element invading the party, and then becomes a great relationship between you and your Twitch viewers. You can encourage your fans to pick something that could help you along the way, or they could betray you for the sake of mixing it up and giving out kappas in your chat while you're trying to survive. Party Hard certainly isn't the first game to try out something like this. Studio Bean's Choice Chamber comes to mind that uses it in a lot more detail, and the Twitch voting is a really fun element here.
We did it! The party is dead. So's everyone else.
I don't stream very often, but I did play this on my Twitch channel with 6 or 7 people voting, and even with that small group, it worked great without any technical problems at all. Also, the Twitch integration will not work on the console versions. The development team did attempt to make it work through the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but it didn't quite go through and they decided to cut the feature. So, if you want the version with the most features, the Steam version is the way to go. But since the game's release, the team didn't stop there. The game was given a few extra levels that take place after the main game, giving a few additional parties for you to mingle with mankind and not mankind. They've also added a really nifty and detailed feature with the level editor. Here you can design your own rooms and traps for players to try out your levels online. The amount of fan-made levels aren't that big since the game is a bit older by internet standards, but it's a really neat feature to have here. The new levels and level editor are all free updates. It's nice to see a publisher and a developer creating extra content that doesn't feel like some kind of sleazy DLC cash grab. Now if there could be a few more players making interesting levels, that would be killer. While the game only received lukewarm praise when it was released, don't be fooled. With the free updates and level balancing, Party Hard rose from mediocrity to being a really engaging little gem. It's not an excellent game as its story felt a little bit tacked on and others may be a bit annoyed with the sometimes repetitive nature of the game, but the positives outweigh the negatives. Its gameplay features an interesting mix of hiding, seeking, and murdering, rewarding your patience with a fun, dark sense of humor. It's a project that the team could have easily forgotten about and went back to the drawing board for a new game, but instead it rewarded loyal players by ironing out the wrinkles and giving a bunch of added value that wasn't expected of them. When the game was released in 2015, it wasn't really worth the ride, but with their dedication, Party Hard in 2016 is worth killing the nights away. Thanks for taking the time to watch my little video on Party Hard today. And an extra special thanks to Chris Fairbanks, aka Mr. Silver Spud, for allowing me to use his Twitch Party Hard footage. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out 2 other videos of mine, and be sure to subscribe to get updates on when new videos are being released. Thanks again for watching, and happy partying!